Hello everybody. Today we are going to continue our evolution of SlapChop, showing you how to create vibrant Dark Angels and Imperial Fists in just 20 minutes each. Grab those dry brushes and let's go. The SlapChop method has already revolutionized miniature painting by providing a quick and effective way to achieve high contrast and rich details with minimal effort. But what if we could go beyond its original intent? What if we could refine it using color theory, making it more than just a speed painting technique? By changing the colors used for pre-shading, we can manipulate how light interacts with the final layers of paint, enhancing the vibrancy and depth of our miniatures without additional effort. Two of the hardest Space Marine chapters to paint convincingly are Imperial Fists and Dark Angels. Imperial Fists suffer from flat, washed-out yellow, while Dark Angels often end up looking too dark and monochromatic. The solution lies in strategic color undercoats. By adjusting the dry brushing steps in the SlapChop process, we can make these colors look more dynamic, rich, and natural. Yellow is notoriously difficult to work with. Unlike other colors, it has poor opacity, making it hard to layer smoothly over dark surfaces. If applied over a black base coat, it turns murky, loses its vibrancy. If applied over white, it often appears chalky or pale, lacking the deep warmth that makes colors feel rich and saturated. This is where we want to bring color theory into play. Instead of relying on the traditional gray to white undercoating method, we can use a pink to yellow transition. This works because pink is a natural complement to yellow, bridging the gap between the black primer and the bright final coat in a way that enhances contrast without making the model look unnatural. So to start off with, we're black priming as always. This ensures that the deepest recesses remain shaded, creating that natural contrast right from the beginning. Black serves as a neutral base that allows our highlights to pop without requiring excessive layering. Step number 2, instead of gray, we're dry brushing with pink from a low angle, concentrating on areas that will remain in shadow. Pink might seem like an odd choice, but here's why it works. Pink provides warm shadows that complement yellow, preventing the armor from feeling desaturated. Pink mixes with yellow to create those smooth gradients, that way you don't need multiple layers of blending. And it absorbs less light than gray, keeping the model's overall color scheme more vibrant. This step ensures that when we apply the final yellow, the shadows remain warm and lively rather than cold and lifeless. For step 3, instead of white, we are now dry brushing with bright yellow from an upward angle. This step serves several purposes. One, it creates a natural transition from pink to yellow, simulating the way light interacts with the surface. 2, yellow on pink subtly introduces orange midtones, adding warmth and realism. And 3, it provides an even base for the speed paint, ensuring smooth coverage. And for the fourth step, when we finally apply a yellow contrast paint or speed paint, the pre-shading does most of the work. The pink remains subtly visible in the shadows, preventing the armor from looking dull. The yellow dry brush ensures the highlights pop, giving the model a natural and sunlit appearance. The result is an Imperial Fist that actually looks bold and dynamic rather than flat and artificial. But what about red accents? The pink undertone enhances red details such as shoulder pads, eye lenses, and bolter casings by providing a natural color harmony. Red and yellow are adjacent on the color wheel, meaning they share warm characteristics that blend smoothly. The pink pre-shading intensifies the red tones, making them appear more saturated and richer than they would over a neutral gray undercoat. Additionally, if red highlights are applied over areas where the yellow and pink overlap, they naturally will shift towards a fiery orange, creating a more dynamic and realistic look for elements like battle damage, weathering effects, and plasma glow. This subtle interplay of warm hues makes the overall color scheme cohesive and visually striking. So why does this work so well compared to normal SlapChop? So the normal SlapChop is relying on neutral gray and white dry brushing, which increases contrast but does little to enhance your color richness. While this works well for dark and muted color schemes, it often results in Imperial Fists that look either washed out or unnaturally bright if you use too much white. Gray desaturates colors, meaning that when a yellow speed paint is applied, it lacks the warmth and intensity needed to create that convincing and rich armor. By replacing the gray with pink and white with yellow, this preserves the warmth and saturation that yellow needs to truly pop. The pink shadows provide a more organic transition to the highlights, and the yellow dry brush ensures that even the brightest areas feel connected to the deep tones. This makes the armor radiant and naturally sunlit, while also ensuring that your red details integrate seamlessly into the scheme rather than feeling like an afterthought. The result is an Imperial Fist that commands attention, standing out on the battlefield with depth, vibrancy, and realism, and the biggest part, all done in 20 minutes. Before we go into our Dark Angels, let's go over the best practices for dry brushing. 1 is use a soft, wide brush to create a smoother gradient. 2 is going to be wiping off most of the paint before you start on either a paper towel, cardboard, or some sort of dry palette. 3, apply with very light and controlled strokes. This really helps to avoid chalkiness or over application. 4, layer multiple passes to build up highlights gradually. As I have said many times before, painting is an additive process, much easier to add more than to take away. And the last thing is to angle the brush appropriately to ensure directional lighting effects, as well as to catch the dry brushing on the angles and edges that you want. So on to the Dark Angels. The dilemma with them is how to achieve this vibrant and punchy green when they're supposed to be dark. So green is another difficult color to work with, but for different reasons. When painted over a black base coat, dark green speed paints or contrast often end up looking too dark, kind of just swallowing the details instead of enhancing them. The standard SlapChop approach with gray and white doesn't really help much. While it might provide a little bit of contrast, it also makes the green appear too washed out and unnaturally bright. To counteract this, we can use a dark teal to yellow transition instead. This leverages the color theory to produce that richer, deep green that's still going to feel natural. So again, we're going to start with black primer to preserve the contrast in the deepest recesses. This provides us a strong foundation and really ups that level of contrast that we're going to get. Next, we're going to move into our low angle dry brush with our dark teal. Instead of gray, we're going to dry brush with this dark teal. The step is key because teal is going to naturally shift into green when overlaid with yellow. This is going to eliminate the need for extra blending and just smooth out the end result. Teal provides the cool shadows, reinforcing the brooding aesthetic of the Dark Angels. We're going to keep our cool shadows while going up to a very vibrant and warm highlight. It does a really nice contrast, especially considering their lore. They're dark, but at the same time, they are glorious warriors. This also is going to prevent the green from becoming too flat, ensuring that our armor retains depth. By using teal instead of gray, we lay the groundwork for a more organic looking green without requiring extra washes, glazing, or any difficult concepts. Step 3 is going to be an upward dry brush with yellow. Just like with the Imperial Fists, we follow up with a yellow dry brush from above. This can have two opposite results. 1. If your brush is fully clean, the yellow serves as a true highlight, adding warmth to raised areas. And 2, if the brush isn't fully clean, the yellow blends with the remaining teal that's already in your brush, creating a natural green midtone. This blending trick is what makes this method work so well. Instead of needing extra layers, the transition happens naturally through dry brushing. So when I'm doing this, I like to go a couple layers after doing the teal. That way we get this nice, really rich green midtone. That sets the bar perfectly for our following speed paint layers, and also then allows the yellow at the very top to really shine through and create a lime highlight. This approach enhances both light and depth, ensuring that green remains vibrant and engaging, rather than falling into the trap of appearing flat or artificial. The shift from teal shadows to yellow highlights creates a compelling visual gradient that traditional SlapChop lacks, making for a superior and more immersive paint job. And on to step 4, it's applying that green speed paint. Once we apply a dark green contrast or speed paint, the pre-shading creates that natural highlight to shadow balance. The teal shadows stay cool, while the yellow highlights make the armor subtly glow from within. The result is a Dark Angel that feels rich, deep, and naturally shaded, not just a blackish green mass. When you're using speed paints or contrast paints, here are a few things that I always do to make sure that I have a more even application at the end. The first is going to be thinning with medium to control your intensity and prevent pooling. Typically I do about 1-to-1 ratio between speed paint or contrast and medium. Second is going to be applying in thin layers to avoid obscuring pre-shading. This can be done very easily. Just make sure you do one quick pass, let it fully dry before going back. With painting, it's an additive process. You can always go back later if you want more color, or if it's a lot harder to go back if you want less. Next, goes back into that previous one, is to let each layer fully dry to prevent your unwanted mixing or to prevent excess pooling. The fourth is using a damp brush for subtle blending in small areas. Before the paint fully dries, you have a couple seconds of working time. So if you need to blend it into a different area or take away a little bit, go ahead and do so with a damp brush. By following these steps, I try to maximize the benefits of SlapChop while enhancing your vibrancy, contrast, and realism beyond the standard method. So why does this work so well? By replacing the standard gray and white undercoat method with more intentional color choices, we are creating greater vibrancy and realism for both Imperial Fists and Dark Angels. The warmth of pink supports the brightness of yellow, while the depth of teal balances the richness of green. These adjustments allow for better light interaction, ensuring that highlights and shadows feel natural rather than forced. This evolution of SlapChop doesn't just make painting faster, it makes colors richer, deeper, and more engaging, solving the long-standing problems that these two very common factions face. Whether painting an army or a single display model, this refined technique enhances contrast, harmony, and overall visual impact with minimal extra effort. If you made it this far, I just wanted to take a second and say thank you. At this point, we've covered Blood Angels, Dark Angels, and now Imperial Fists. If there's another chapter or faction you want to see, please leave a comment and I'll see what I can do. Also, if you haven't done so yet, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It truly does help get these videos out to more people and a broader audience. Alrighty, that's all for this one. I will catch you guys in the next one.